Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Zebo Nation Plays, the FM Scout Academy Challenge with FC Dallas. And here we are, Season 9 mid-season review. Let's take a look at our competitions. Let's just dive straight into it. Things have been going exceptionally well in the MLS. We are currently first place in the Western Conference, first place in the Supporters' Shield by a mile. By a wide margin, we are running away with the league. After 19 games, we have 16 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses, total of 49 points, a 34 or plus 34 goal differential. We are killing the league. There's no doubt about it. We are up 16 points ahead of Real Salt Lake. And, I don't think there's any catching us unless we just have a complete collapse. But I'm not sure that's going to happen. So we can take a look at the schedule and just look at the fine form. So, of course, if you saw the first episode of the season, you'd notice that we had the old Champions League malaise after losing our first leg in the Champions League. And we lost our first 2 MLS games. But after that, we rebounded. And we've gone on an unbeaten streak, just an incredible unbeaten streak since those first 2 games. So I guess it's a 17 game. No, wait. All right. I got my timelines a little backwards. So we did win our first 3 games of the MLS. Then after Champions League, we had the 2 losses. So gone on a 12 game unbeaten streak, I suppose, if the math checks out correctly. But anyway, it's quite the unbeaten streak, as you can see. Just a lot of goals that we've scored. Now, we've given up a few goals, too. There's quite a few games where the other team gets 1 goal. But we have a few very big victories. 4-1 over Houston was a big one. 3-1 over NYC FC. 3-1 over DC United. 5-1 over New England. Just dominate. Our last 4 games have just been completely dominating. 5-1 over New England, as I mentioned. 3-1 over New York. 3-0 over Toronto. And then 4-1 over Atlanta in our last game. Just pummeling the MLS. They can't stop us. They can't even hope to contain us. So this match should be another overwhelming victory, as we're going to go into the U.S. Cup, 4th round U.S. Cup, and we have a bit of surprise here. It's INDY 11 is the team we're going up against. They are a 2nd division team who've made it all the way to the 4th round, so good on them. But then, unfortunately, they get to play the number 1 hottest team in the MLS, which is us, and it's not going to look good for them. They got a few injuries. Their players are, not bad for a 2nd division team, although they don't have a lot of potential. Other than it looks like their best player, Daniel Scott, is injured. They don't have a lot of loan players. They've only got 1 player, Paul Roberts, on loan from Portland, 27 years old, so he's not a very good player. They're just probably loaning him out just to get his salary off the books, I suppose. But yeah, INDY 11, they've got a tough hill to climb. But before we get to that, let's run down the checklist and see where we're at as a club. As we've seen where we're at on the standings, which is pretty good. But now let's check where we're at as a club. Go to the finances. And finances, we're still hovering around that $50 million mark. Although we have lost a little bit of money this season. As you can see, our profit and loss for the month is, pretty meager. It's negative $25,000, which is, practically nothing. But it does start to show a little bit of a downward trend. If you look here on the graph, you can see a tiny little downward trend. And this season, we've only made $5.3 million, which is a far cry from last season when we made, $11 million. So our expenses are starting to catch up with us. And we've kind of reached that equilibrium where we're basically putting out as much money as we're taking in. And, there's not much we can do about that. But we do have, that's why we've built up this huge bank balance, is so when this day eventually came, it wouldn't have any kind of effect on our club. We can manage losing a few $1,000,000 every season for the next, however long this series goes. But, of course, the one problem with this budget is our salary cap. As you can see, we're currently spending $7.8 million per year on the salary cap, which is well above what the actual MLS salary cap is. Now, much of that excess is to our 3 designated players, so that means that their salary only counts a certain percentage against the cap, so that's why we're allowed to go so far over the MLS cap, which I believe currently is around $5 million. Can we look at the league specific, and does that say what our cap is? So yeah, the salary cap is $4.25 million, and officially we're spending $4.1 million. And it's actually taken some finagling to get to that point. I've had to shave a little bit of salary off so that I can try to re-sign a couple of players, and we'll look at that in a minute. But of course, our big problem is the general allocation money bug that we've been experiencing. Negative $2 billion. There's nothing we can do about that. So, we're just going to have to do our best and kind of mess with our salary and drop players and sign players as frugally as we can. So let's go down to the board. You can look, of course, our job security is currently untouchable. We started the year at 81%. We've gone up to, or did we start the year at 77%? I forget. The seasons are melding together. But anyway, regardless, we are still untouchable at 83%, creeping towards that 100% value that I'm hoping to reach this season. There's probably a good chance that we are going to reach that 100%, especially if we win the Supporter Shield the way we're going to, which is by a wide margin. And then we go on, if we can win the MLS Cup as well, I think we'll pretty much guarantee that 100%. And if we don't get the 100% this year, I don't think we'll ever get it. I think this board is just that stingy with their praise. But anyway, other than that, we're looking pretty good. Payroll budget is still astronomical. Transfer budget, $13 million. There's nothing going on there. So, yeah, everything is fine and dandy with the board. Check out the club. We're still rich. We're still 3 stars. I believe we're still the number 1 club in the USA. Yes, we are still the number 1 club in the USA, trailed by Los Angeles and Philadelphia. That's an interesting club to be up there so high. Sporting Kansas City. Montreal Impact is apparently technically a USA club. I'm sure they would not be happy to hear that. But anyway, we are the top club in the USA, and hopefully we can keep it that way. Alright, so now we'll come to the transfers point, and not a lot going on here, but there is a little bit to do with our salary cap issues. So at the beginning of the season, I waived Ashley Rhodes, a 21-year-old striker, just to get us under the salary cap. And I wasn't happy about that. He was a decent player, but, who we could have used this season, in a, third-string reserve kind of role, just an insurance policy type dude with 15 finishing. You can throw him out on the field, and hopefully he can knock in a goal. But he wasn't that important. He didn't have that many great abilities outside of his 15 finishing, so it's fine to just toss him aside for salary cap reasons. He hasn't signed with anyone, so technically we could go back out and get him again if we needed to, but I don't think that's going to be necessary. Then we tried to sign a couple of players. We don't have many contracts expiring, at least not many important contracts expiring this year, but we do have a couple of players. Our reserve defensive midfielders, Abdul Ghani and Guevara, their contracts are both running out this season, so I want to try to re-sign those guys. But they're both young guys. They both still have an agent, so their agents are kind of overvaluing their clients at the moment. And so we haven't been able to sign them to contracts that would keep us under the salary cap. I tried to sign Guevara to 1, but it was just over the salary cap, and the board denied it. So because of that, I've sent a couple of regular salary players out on loan. Luke Hyde and Luke Hill. The Lukes, I've sent them to Arizona United and San Antonio FC, so that gets their contracts off the board. So I've got that little extra spending money, so maybe I could now sign one of those players, either Guevara or Abdul Ghani. But to make up with those players, I brought in a couple of junior players from our academy. Eichel Kalina, from Aruba. It's an interesting island nation to come from, but he's come through our academy. 18-year-old goalkeeper. We've had some goalkeeper injuries, so he was a necessary player to bring up. But also because when you sign players from the academy, they typically sign for a what's the name of their contract? There's a certain kind of contract that they sign. Does it say? It's the hot prospect contract, but it's a certain team status that they have. Where is he? Oh, I'm just bogging down the video now with minutia. Doesn't even say what his contract is. But anyway, they have a certain kind of contract, reserve contract, that's what it is, reserve contract, which does not count versus the salary cap. So you can have a maximum of 6 of those players. So essentially, every year you could sign 6 of your academy players to your squad, basically for free. Wouldn't count against the salary cap at all. So that's what we've done. We've replaced salaried players with reserve players, because our off-budget players, we have a ton of players off-budget. I think we have a total of like 16 off-budget players, but only 8 of them actually have their salaries off of the MLS salary cap. So, we're using the rules as best we can, even though we're handicapped at the moment with the bug. But, once you get used to these MLS rules, these MLS salary cap type rules, you can finagle them. You can use a bit of chicanery and goings on to maximize your roster. But anyway, we'll go back, take a look at the final players here. So we brought in Colina, who is a goalkeeper. He's not the greatest goalkeeper you've ever seen. He's obviously a young player. He's only 18 years old. His aerial reach, command, and communications could be much, much better. But he does have 14 handling, 14 reflexes, 13 agility. So, he's got some decent skills, and we're going to see him in action here. I'm actually going to play him pretty soon, so we'll get a look and see how good he really is. And then I also brought up Aldo Lozano, a 16-year-old striker. Number one, as I mentioned, because we cut Ashley Rhodes in the offseason, we needed another reserve striker, so I brought him up at 16 years old. He's got 16 finishing already, 13 pace, so he can just get down the field, put the ball in the back of the net. That's fine and dandy for a reserve striker. But also, he'd kind of reached his level. He'd already reached 2 stars in potential at our academy, so my rule of thumb is once a player reaches 2 stars in your academy, pull them out, because they're not going to get any better. Pull them out of the academy, sign them to a contract, and either play them or send them out on loan somewhere. So what we'll do, once we get some of our strikers back and things like that, we'll send Aldo out on loan if we can. But otherwise, just the fact that he's up here training with the first team, that should help him improve a little bit. And we just signed these guys like a week ago, so they haven't done much training at all. All right, so that's the transfer moves that we've done. Not a lot, not very exciting. Haven't done any trading. There's not usually a lot of wheeling and dealing done mid-season in terms of trades. When you're just trading for draft picks. That's most of the draft pick trading is closer to the off season, when people have a better idea of what the draft positions are going to be. So anyway, that's enough of that. I think the only thing left now is to play the game, right? Look at the game, see what we got going on here. Again, it is 4th round of the U.S. Cup versus INDY 11, and let's go. Let's do it. We don't know our position yet in Champions League. We haven't seen our group selection yet, so hopefully we'll see that fairly soon. So here's INDY 11. Looks like they're going a little bit defensive here with the 2 defensive midfielders, but they got the three advanced players, so maybe they'll look to give us a bit of a game. So here is our pretty highly rotated side. We have several players out on international duty at the moment. Washington, Zamora, Sanchez, our goalkeeper, McCrecky, Gonzalez, Valenzuela, our central defender. So we got that going on. So it's a good thing we're playing INDY 11 right now. We can play a much more rotated side. So here we are. We have our new academy goalkeeper, Colina, is going to be starting for us in goal. His first and probably only game he's going to play for us this season. So we'll see what he's all about. But since he just came from the academy, he is pretty much match fit, 85%. That's good enough. Then defense, we have Wheat and Acosta at the fullback positions. Acosta is losing his role in the team. 28 years old. I mean, like I said before, I'd like to keep him around, but his salary might be a little bit detrimental to us. I'd like to get his salary off the board, but he's still valued at $2.9 million, so I don't think he's going to accept much of a reduced salary, if any of a reduced salary. So we might have a difficult decision with Acosta coming up next season when his contract runs out. All right, then at central defense, we got our old tag team of Johnson and Zimmerman. They have been supplanted this season by our other players, our younger players. But for this cup team, we're going to reunite the dynamic duo. They used to be the rocks of the foundation of our team. Now they've got a little bit of a reserve role with us. So we'll see. They should be able to handle INDY. Whatever INDY 11 throws at them, they should be able to handle it. Then there are those players that I mentioned I need to re-sign their contracts. Abdul Ghani at defensive midfielder. Rodolfo Guevara at box-to-box midfielder. Guldan hasn't got quite as much playing time this season as last season because his position has been supplanted a little bit. We got a lot of good midfielders right now on the team, so they're all scrapping and fighting for playing time. And Guldan has kind of been odd man out recently. But he's going to play the ball-winning midfielder against INDY 11. One of our players who has played a lot more for us this season, a draft pick that we've been trying to just throw in the lineup and see if he can play well, is Tomas Kalatiud. He's an attacking central midfielder usually, but he can play the advanced playmaker, so we're going to play him there right now. And just use that versatility. He has the versatility, so let's use it. He's been getting better. He's been improving. He's got good physical stats. So we're just, at 23 years old, once a guy reaches that age, you got to play him, see what he's got, see what he can do, see if he can improve and reach his potential. Because after that, after 23 years old, it's kind of a slower climb to reach their potential. So you want to get him in and play him. Between the ages of 20 and 23, I feel, are really the prime years for getting players into the starting lineup. Then, a surprise, Carlos Alcantara was not selected for the U.S. national team. I mean, it's good for us. I think bad for the national team. But anyway, we're going to play him just to make sure we have some firepower in the lineup. He just played the last game, so we'll get him out there soon. But, that's how our lack of depth at striker is right now, that we basically have to play Alcantara. We don't have much choice. And then Sammy, our number 1 draft pick from last season, he's also been fighting in the rotation because, we still have Ben Manning out there, even though he's been called up. Or no, Ben Manning, I believe, is injured at the moment. Take a look. Yes, Ben Manning is injured at the moment, so Sammy's going to get a little bit of playing time. But traditionally, Manning is our number 1 option off the bench, so Sammy has to be that number 2 option off the bench. and that has resulted in less playing time for him. But there is our starting lineup, pretty good. On the bench, we have Lure, Cole, Wang Yuan at central defense. Makopa, who played quite a bit last season at fullback, has played less this season because of our rookie that we've got going on there. Van de Castile, Sanfilippo, another rookie. I've moved him into the starting lineup for many games just because he's such an interesting talent. That's allowed us to move Zamora down to the central midfield and given us a more attacking central midfield, I should say. And then our academy player, Aldo Lozano, who I mentioned before that we just signed, he's going to be our one and only reserve striker. That's why we signed him, because that Manning injury has left us a little bit thin. So there we go. Let's submit that team and get ahead. Yep, lots of players lacking match sharpness. That's fine. Lozano needs a number. He wants to be number 9. Good for you. How about number 19? That's always a good compromise there. Just add a 1 to the number that you want, and away you go. All right, so we're looking to dominate Indy 11 the way we dominated the MLS. And we've reached that point in the save where we do have a dominant team. It's time to push on and carry that over to the Champions League. Your team today is heavily impacted by international call-ups. How do you see this affecting the match? We look at it as a positive. Let more people play, all that stuff. You've chosen Stuart Cole out of your 11. Yeah, no, I won't. It's a long season and rotation is necessary there. How about that? Take that, Mr. Journalist. Okay, so it looks like they've changed up their formation a little bit, going somewhat defensive with the 3 central defenders and the 2 wingbacks. So essentially 5 defenders and then 3 midfielders, 2 strikers. So we might be in for a defensive struggle here against Indy 11, so we're going to have to break them down with our superiority, hopefully. Now, apply our advice to the team, continue to the pep talk. Oh, give overall pep talk passionately. Come on, guys. We're the favorites, so show me what you can do. Only Wheat is interested in that. So we'll take a look at the tactics, and this is the tactic I've been going with that has dominated the league. It's a high-pressure control system. So we are pushing our defense much forward. We're closing down and, causing a lot of havoc on our opponent's side of the field, turning them over, and then taking control of the ball and taking control of the match. And we've really just used this system to dominate some teams that maybe don't have our overall depth, overall quality. And I worry that this isn't getting us ready for Champions League, but it is allowing us to dominate the MLS. So, you got to kind of go with what works at this point. So let's just start the match and get going. Here we are, I believe, yes, Toyota Stadium. Not quite a full house, as would be expected against an opponent like Indy 11, but still a decent crowd. Our attendance has been up this season, so I'm happy with that. It's about time people come and support a championship franchise like we are. But anyway, here we go. First highlight, Abdul Ghani sends it in. It'll be interesting to see how many goals we score. Zimmerman, yes, offside. So this could be our downfall, or at least cause us to have a tighter margin than we'd like, is that we do have a lot of unfit players in this lineup. So maybe control might not be the way to go. Our assistant coach, Tim Regan, is imploring us to play a more direct style. So let's follow his wishes here. And let's go more direct passing. Sure, why not? And just see what that does. That one little change, we're going to stick with the control scheme and the high pressure and just see if going more direct does something. Yellow card for Indy 11. I'm pretty sure this is what their game plan is just to try to ride out the storm. Here's a highlight for Indy 11, not looking good for us. If they score a goal and get ahead of us, oh boy. Oh boy, it could be trouble. So let's get the steal. There's Acosta with the steal up to Sammy. Can he send it forward? No, he gets it stolen by Ramos. Looks like he's going to get it back, though. Sammy is just taking control of the ball. Here's Abdul Ghani to Guevara. Gets it out wide to Wheat. Wheat centers it. There it is. The crowd roars for Alcantara's 15th goal of the season. Excellent setup here. Get it out wide to those fullbacks. Our fullbacks are playing very well this season. Wheat to Alcantara. No chance there for the young goalkeeper from Indy 11. And there we have it. There's our goal. That should get us through. I don't know that Indy 11 is going to be able to score many goals on us. I mean, they could score one, so it'd be nice to get a second. But let's tell the boys to... You've played well, but there's room for improvement. Let's get out there. Let's get out there and do our thing. So, yes, that's where we're at with this series right now, is everything is focusing on the Champions League. Our MLS goals have been met, and we continue to meet them and exceed them every season, especially right now, the way we're dominating the Supporters' Shield. So I'm just trying to prepare the team for Champions League, and one of the ways I've been preparing the team for Champions League is I've been hoarding #1 draft picks in the Super Draft. I've been going out and trading all my draft picks away to get the top picks in the draft, and using those players to try and build us up, because our academy is not really producing the players that I would like them to produce. So here the second half is just flying by. And so the Super Draft is really the way that we're going to have to go. This, if we're going to win the Super Draft or win the Champions League anytime in the near future, it's going to have to be with Super Draft players. So what I've been doing is I've been playing those #1 draft picks. I've been getting them into the lineup, into the starting lineup. Well done, guys. Good win for us. So players like Sanfilippo, been getting him in the starting lineup and making sure that he gets the playing time that he needs to improve and maybe reach that potential by the time we get to the next round of the Champions League. So this year's team is good enough to win the group stage, I believe. I mean, we haven't seen our group yet. It might have, Tigres and Monterrey in it, and then we'd be in trouble. But if it's just us with a couple of smaller teams, no problem. This team can wipe the floor with a group like that. So what I've been doing is I've been playing in our #1 lineup here. Take a look at our starting lineup. So I've been playing Hunter Ruthven, one of our top draft picks this season. He's a 3-star central defender already, only at 21 years old. He's getting better. He's got 3.5-star potential, maybe even greater than that if his dark stars come through. But look at that. He's got 11 pros, only 1 con to his name. So he's a player he's got star potential written all over him. And so we got to get him in the lineup, and he's been playing well, along with Valenzuela. So if both those guys get up to 4-star defenders, we'll have a formidable defense to go into Champions League. And then the other guy been playing at left back, not Makopa. Oh, I did this lineup when he was injured, but it's Bill Hernandez here has been starting at left back. And he's another player who just, right now he's only at 2 stars. He's feeling out our system because our system is a little weird. But he's a guy with a lot of abilities, a lot of physical abilities, a lot of interesting mental stats. He's got 14 flair. I mean, I haven't played with a fullback with that much flair, and he gets down the field and he crosses the ball, and he does a lot of interesting stuff that none of our other players do. And you see he thrives in big matches. He's a consistent performer, so getting more players like this into the team, players who like big matches, players with flair, with talent, with ability to play with those Mexican teams that we're going to be going up against. That's how we need to continue to build our team going forward in the future. And if we get some of these academy players, we'll be including them as well. But at the moment, our academy players just are not good enough. They're producing us a lot of attacking right midfielders, which we do not need. But it's super draft or bust, basically. Let's see. Is there anything else we need to talk about this season? Not unless they tell us what our group stage is going to be all about. But they probably won't do that before we need to end the video. So that's what we've got to look forward to, essentially, is continued domination of the MLS. Hopefully we can just cruise to a Supporters' Shield victory. And then we'll come back once we get to the group stage. We'll play a couple of group stage games. We'll look at the group stage, analyze the Champions League for next season. And then we'll come back, of course, for the season finale, the playoffs, and all that stuff. But we're definitely all in on this franchise. Strategically, our strategy is going forward looking at Champions League as our next hurdle. So that's where we're at. That's where we're going. And that's where we'll end the video. So until then, until we get to the Champions League, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.